You're on.
So my name is David DeHorn. I don't know, has anyone ever seen me here before?
I've never seen you here.
Just a few. Okay. I typically come to the 9:30 service, but I have been known to visit the 10:30 as well. I am on the Board of Trustees, and anybody know what the Board of Trustees does? One of the things I was supposed to talk about was what the Board of Trustees does.
Right.
All right. So, anybody know? No one know? Or you just want to be quiet tonight? Okay. We make sure that the church continues to operate financially stable, that we still have money to operate next year and 10 years from now and 50 years from now. So how do we do that?
Hold on.
Let's do this. Let me ask you a couple questions. Do you guys know what kind of bills your parents pay at home? Throw some out. Just throw some out. What do they pay for?
Credit card.
I'm sorry?
Credit card.
Car? Credit card.
Electricity.
Water. House. Mortgage? House? Yeah.
Cell phones.
Cell phones. Ooh, that's a good one.
Those are free.
Yeah. Taxes. Yes, taxes. They're expensive. So you kind of get it. At church, we have to pay the same bills, except for the taxes, right?
Yeah.
Some taxes, but without the taxes, we have to pay a lot of things. And our board takes a look at things that we have to pay for. And a lot of things we have to pay for are things that have to do with keeping the church safe and warm and repaired properly. One of the things we're talking about right now is the parking lot. When you drive into the parking lot, it's got some big holes in it and some cracks in it. And, some of us say, that's not very inviting. It kind of looks kind of bad. Should we fix it?
Bad for the shops.
But it's really, really, really expensive. It's $75,000, $100,000. And what we have to think about is this isn't our money that we're spending. So one of the things that your parents do when they pay the bills, they earn their money, they pay their money. So they can do whatever they want with it. For us, we have to be really careful because when I make a decision about the church and how the church spends the money, it's not my money. Some of it is, a little bit of it is, not a lot, but a little, but most of it is somebody else's money. And so we have to be really, really thoughtful and careful about how we spend other people's money, because other people, it takes a village, right?
It's also their parents' money too.
And their parents' money, yep, and your parents' money. But we have to be very, very careful about how we spend the money, so we have money left over at the end of the year, at the end of the decade, at the end of whatever. So that's really what we do at the Board of Trustees each month. There's really about a list of 10 or 12 really important things that we need to take a look at, and some things need to get fixed. Some things we say, we don't have enough money this month or this year to pay for that. We're going to have to wait. And that's probably the hardest thing that we do, because I think we all want it done today, right? And sometimes we have to make those hard decisions and say, we can't do it today. We have to wait till next month or next year. So that's kind of what we do.
Where does that money come from?
Where does that money come from?
Paying the bills and everything.
Yeah. So every year about this time, your parents, myself, members of the church, receive an estimate of giving card, and you probably have seen those. They might be in the backs of the chairs. There you go. And so we ask all the members and all the people that attend regularly to say, hey, you know what? This year I'm going to give $50. I'm going to give $100. I'm going to give $1,000 to the church. And what we do with that is we take all of those cards that everybody puts. Either sends us online, puts it in the offering plate, or gives it to the church office, and we use that as a budget. And we say, okay, we have a certain amount of money that we have to work with, And then we put a budget together, not necessarily the Board of Trustees, I think it's the other boards that put the budget together, and it's Steve Ash that put it together. And we say, these are the things that we're going to be able to use the money for this year, and then we go back to the church membership, and we vote on it, and they approve whether or not we're going to spend those funds for each of those different things. And we typically allot money to the youth group, to the things that Rhonda does, to to the things that you guys are participating in too, and that's a very, very, very critical and important piece of the ongoing mission of the church is to, and I think it's great because frankly, I don't know if this is a record, but it's got to be pretty doggone close that we've had 42 kids participate in the Christmas. Highest ever, absolutely. And as long as I've been going to Northfield Community Church, which isn't as long as Jeff or Bill or Pastor Meyer or Rhonda, but there are more kids now than I ever remember, and it's awesome. I think it's great. And this is the future of the church, to have the kids and have you guys grow up in the church. So I guess.
Did you have any experience as a youth in the church, or
Yeah.
did you just show up as an adult?
Yeah,
How did you end up?
I just showed up here one day.
Yeah, no, I don't mean here particularly. I mean,
Yeah,
just
no.
like,
Yeah, that's a good segue. Anybody have any questions with the Board of Trustees before I move into my kind of history in the church and how I grew up in the church? Yeah.
Besides the parking lot, what were some of the other things that you were looking into?
So I don't know if you've seen it, but we this year approved to install solar panels on the roof. Have you seen those?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And that was a big.
they're on.
Yeah, they're on, and they're working. That was a big thing. But that was a big expense too. And we, as a church, had to decide, as a board, had to decide, we're going to have to spend X number of dollars up front, out of everybody's pockets, for a long term payback. And over the course of maybe, I don't know how long did we say it's going to take to pay back.
7 years, but
Yeah.
the solars are 25 years.
Yeah. So.
But just to go along with that, and I don't know, you might have been on trust. It might be a little early. We made a decision on the Board of Trustees and the congregation a number of years ago to become as environmentally friendly and energy efficient as we could. And so over the last 20 or so years, all sorts of things have been done to our facilities to reduce our energy footprint. So the solar panels were sort of I don't know about the icing on the cake, but a big movement for us to go past conservation now to one step further. But that's part of why we have a community garden, a butterfly garden, and a lot of other stuff around the building for efficiency and energy savings. So it's a big deal. And talking about them being the future of the church, and also the church, it's because we'd like to leave you a planet that's in better shape. We want to make sure. So that's, the trustees do all this stuff, but they do it thinking about not just the present, but the future, and what it means for you guys. In our own little way, just like you do in your own homes, what we can do to make things better.
Yeah. A couple other things. Part of the church runs on forced air, which is a furnace. Like you probably have a furnace in your house, maybe, and it blows hot air. Part of the church runs on a boiler, and 2 boilers actually. And the last couple of years, we've actually had to replace. About 3 years ago, we had to replace a boiler, and I think the other one's kind of on its last leg, right?
I hope not. I think it's Bernadette and Bernie or something.
Yeah. We have 2. We got 2.
We got 2 in the last 8 or 9 years.
Yeah. Okay. So that was a big expense. We had to repair, or we haven't repaired yet, the bell tower windows.
No, we got those done.
We got those done. Okay, so the bell tower.
There's always something.
Yeah, I mean, there's stuff all the time. Things that we have to fix. Windows that need to be fixed. Roof that we need a new roof on. The church. Just lots of stuff all the time. There's stuff all the time. So those are the types of things that we talk about.
Tracy.
So I guess that's a good segue into my my kind of history and how I grew up in the church. So, Tyler, I grew up in Muskegon, Michigan, home of the Silver Sides. Yep. Been on the Silver Sides too. Went to a church called Berean Church, and it was started by my best friend's grandfather. And he came from the Netherlands and started a church. And there's a Bible verse, and I don't know what Bible verse it is, but it says something to the effect that those in Berea were more noble than those from Thessalonica. And that was why our church was named Berean Church, because our people were more noble than those of Thessalonica. I don't know. Anyway. But I'll tell you, my parents, we went to church every Sunday. We had church Sunday morning at 9:15, and it went to 10:30. We had Sunday school after that. And then we had youth group Sunday night. But before youth group, at 7 o'clock on Sunday night, we had 6 o'clock church. And we went to church for a second service at 6 o'clock every Sunday. So I was church in the morning, Sunday school, church at night, youth group. Wednesday night, youth group. And then Friday night, we had youth group. And in the winter, we went skiing. In the summer, we played volleyball. And so, needless to say, I was at church half of my life. And I met most of my great childhood friends there who are still great friends of mine today. I think one of the things that happens when you go to church and you spend your entire one of the things we did, so 7th grade, we did something similar to what you guys are doing right now. We had what was called Bible instruction. And so in 7th grade, on Wednesday night before youth group, we had an hour and a half of Bible instruction. In the 7th grade, well, it flip-flopped each year. My 7th grade was the Old Testament. And so we spent the entire school year in my 7th grade year on Wednesday nights going through Bible instruction of the Old Testament and learned all about the Old Testament. And then in 8th grade, and that's why it flip-flopped, because there were some 7th graders that did the New Testament with me in 8th grade, but they were 7th graders. So we did the 7th grade, we did Old Testament one year, New Testament, and then Old Testament. And so my 8th grade year, we did the New Testament and learned all about the New Testament. So it was really, really great because I have a pretty good knowledge of the Bible. I know a lot about the Bible, which is kind of neat. In fact, one of the Bible verses this morning, Psalm 27:1, Lord is my light and my salvation, Lord is the light, I thought I remembered that. So we had to learn all of the books of the Bible and lots of verses, but we learned a lot about the Bible. And so I kind of have really, really good memories of the church. Interesting, in college, you kind of don't go to church as much because you either don't have time or because you don't have to.
Yeah.
Or you just, I don't know, it's harder because you're I went to Michigan State. And so I was in a city that I didn't know the churches, so I just didn't go to church. But when you graduate and you either come back or you start a job and you start living in a place, I kind of felt the need or the want or the desire, to attend church again. And I moved to Chicago, and Claire grew up Catholic. So we had to sort of figure out how are we going to go to a church that sort of has both. And that's really hard to find. But Claire probably she probably gave up more on the Catholic side than I did coming to Northfield. But we ended up coming to Northfield and really, really liking it, and felt at home here and been here ever since. And so not exactly sure what drew us here in the first place, but I think I've said this in church a few times that we did go church shopping, and if you have to go church shopping is not fun. I don't like to church shop. It's hard and it's difficult, and it's yeah, it is what it is. But we ended up buying Northfield Community Church after we shopped. So that's kind of my background, where I came from, how I ended up here, and I've really enjoyed participating. I told Pastor Meyer when he called me and asked me to do this, I said, there are so many different ways that you can contribute to the church, and it's not all financially. You don't always have to give money. You don't always have to do this or participate in a board or something like that. I mean, I don't know if you guys were in church. Were any of you in church when I gave a sermon about a month ago? One, two?
I think you've done it a couple times.
Yeah.
I have. I've done it a couple times. It's not my day job by any stretch, but those are other ways that you can contribute to and do things for the church, and I've enjoyed that as well. And so there's lots of different things that you can do at the church. So I hope that you'll learn a lot more from other people about what other things there are to do in the church, and I hope that as you grow older, go away to college, come back, or go off to wherever you go off to, that you consider giving back to the church, because I get as much out of giving as I get, and that's important as well as giving, I think.
Does anybody have any questions for Dave?
And probably the daughter that they would know would be Mackenzie.
Mackenzie, yeah, Mackenzie is my daughter, so one of my daughters.
And Annika.
And Annika.
Well, but
Yeah.
But today,
Mackenzie's the one that these
Mackenzie
guys-
was in the today. Yeah. So happy to answer any questions. I hope that.
Thank you. So if and when you got a rock, you should rock.
Okay.
Speaking of your Catholic families.
Yeah.
Post-mass commitment.
Would feel
Jeff, you're closest to the front. Do you want to
Sure.
tell us who you are, what you do, what you're doing here?
Can I start with a joke?
I love it. Yeah. Yes, because your jokes are.
I'm a retired teacher, so I haven't had a captive audience for a while, so I'm just thinking,
There you go. You got them now.
I'm into pirate jokes right now. Is that okay? You ready? First one's a question. Okay. Do pirates, do they generally,
I'm going for the look on their faces when you do this.
Should I sit? Is it focused in on me?
It is a little better if you sit.
I can raise it if you want.
Wade
There you go. I got you.
Do pirates shower before they walk the plank? No, they wash up on shore.
Oh. Wow, that's horrible.
And this is a thinking one. Ready? You ready to think? We'll see who's can process. A skeleton walks into a bar, asks for a Coke and a mop. That's the joke.
That's the joke.
So when I taught physics, that would be my, yeah. Do you ever have teachers say something and you don't understand what they're saying?
Yeah.
All the time, right? So what should you do?
Just now.
Just now, yeah. But usually, somebody goes, when I tell that joke, they go, I don't get it. And then I can explain it to them, right? So a skeleton walks into a bar, asks for a Coke, right? It's a skeleton and a mop.
Get it?
It doesn't make it funny. That's okay. You don't
The
have
story has
to.
a moral to it. If you spill something, you should mop it up.
Yeah, you got to know what a mop is. You got to know a lot of things. That's a lot of things. Anyway,
At least he's clean.
that's right. If you need more of those, I'll save that for later. So yeah, my name is Jeff Jordan, and I bet most of you have seen me here as a member of the Board of Deacons, because our primary role is to usher and do hospitality and prepare communion and coffee and try to support Dwayne and Rhonda and the other members of the staff in their endeavors. But mostly it's ushering, right? Worship leading sometimes, stuff like that. And so I grew up in Northfield, lived on Bristol Street, so I was baptized here and confirmed here and married here, at least once. And
Does Jenny know?
well, she's going to see this, I'm sure, so it'll be fine. No, married here, and now I've been on the deacons for a really long time, and I'm on the deacons because I was asked to be on the deacons, and then I said sure. Actually, it was funny when David was talking, because I'd been away for quite a while, and then we had children and started coming, and Bob Soar asked me if I was if I was church shopping when I showed up, and I said, no, Bob, I've known you for a long time, but that's okay. So I've been here a really long time, and so some other things the deacons do is just generally help out, like a lot of you guys were after the party today, cleaning up and taking care of things. And I also sit on the church council, which is not required when you're a deacon, unless you're foolish enough to be in charge of the deacons, right, Dwayne? Dwayne didn't tell me that when he asked me to be in charge of the deacons, but
We like you guys to ease into your responsibility.
that's right. Any questions about what the deacons do? How would you guys feel about ushering? Is that something that would make you? Would that make you nervous to do that? Like when people come in, I give them the bulletin, right, and I light the candles, and we do the offering, that kind of stuff. Say hello to people.
How many deacons do we have?
Currently, we have 6 deacons.
How many ushers?
Well, depends. We should have 12, but we ask people to volunteer to usher sometimes. Like the Buckmans back there, sometimes will usher for us, and they're not on the board. And Rhonda will often ask you guys as part of your confirmation class to help usher. So if that's the case, don't worry about it. It's okay. If anybody complains about the job you do ushering, what you do is you invite them to join the deacons, and then they could show us how to do it properly. So, but it's like being the worship leader, right? That would probably be a little bit of a step up, right, where you're standing up there and you read the scripture, and Tessa's done that a few times, right?
I
But
think Ruthie's done it.
Ruthie did it not long ago.
really, where was I? How'd it go? Pretty good, yeah. Were you a little nervous? Yeah,
Were you?
yeah. That's normal. That tells you you're alive. That's good.
She like the thumbs up to you all the time.
So anyway, so those would be some ways that, and look forward to that if you can volunteer to help us out. One of us will be there to help you.
And it's a great way to get when you're in confirmation, right, Ron?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Get your confirmation box checked. So the office of deacon is one of the biblical offices that we have. We really just have 2 offices in the church that are ground, well, they're not ground, but that are specifically mentioned. In our church, there are other churches that have others, but deacons is one of them. So and the word deacon or diaconate literally means table server. It means servant. And so in the early church, the deacons were responsible for taking the leftovers, because every time the church met, they had a potluck, which is awesome. And people made sure they brought enough food that then there were people who were given the job to take it to widows and orphans, because those are the most, at the time, and maybe you could argue now, are among the most marginalized people in Jerusalem, and that's where the church was started. And so they would take it out to the widows and orphans, to the poor. So they Goes all the way back to the very first time the church met. So there you go. But I do think having a potluck every Sunday is cool too. Best food in the world. Potluck for the church.
Anybody have a favorite cookie today?
Oh, all of them. I like the yellow and orange ones.
Okay.
I'm trying to suck up a little.
BJ makes the cookies for today. He did the chocolate chip.
They were all good.
Oh, the chocolate chip, that's what I was gonna say. Those
They were all
awesome.
good.
BJ made those.
BJ, I didn't even have one of your chocolate chips.
You missed out.
No, at the heart of what all of our boards and committee members do is service. And our diaconate really symbolizes that as well as anybody. It's service from below. It's if you've ever been to a restaurant, or if you've ever helped or maybe made the meal for your family, it is very satisfying, but it's also very clear that you are serving others. There's no question about it. You're not sitting up in the front of everybody with a fancy robe on, or you are serving people. It's pretty cool. Nothing wrong with fancy robes.
I was going to ask for one, but I guess that's
We
okay.
can get you a robe. We got extras.
Anybody else questions about being a deacon? Okay.
Good job.
All right, one more joke.
No, we'll take it. We need a joke. I mean,
I'll say it.
You want me to go?
Yes,
Make it so
if you
you
don't
can't,
mind. You got a joke?
Most of my high school teachers.
Yeah, they like
So bad at
physical
jokes.
therapist
I'm
jokes.
just kidding.
Can you crack a joke? Get it? See what you did there? I was just pulling your leg.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Kelly Cunningham, and I'm going to start a little backwards compared to what David and Jeff did. And I don't know why. I'm tired and emotional because Rhonda made me cry earlier, so I apologize if I get misty, just thinking about my whole story. And I'll embarrass my daughter Annie, who was right there. So what brought me here is almost like what you guys are right now. I went to Kenilworth Union Church. Grew up there my entire life. I was part of the youth service. I did Wednesday night. We had a Wednesday night youth service. In high school, I taught Sunday school.
Dr. Bowen.
We did with Dr. Bowen. We did a bunch of Dr. Bowen's son ended up doing Emmy's ACL surgery, so it all comes full circle. That's where I was confirmed. I did all the confirmation activities that you guys have been doing, even after college. I went back and I was one of the youth leaders. So being part of in terms of what I was saying, Sunday school and part of the youth group, I was always around the kids. That's what I love to do. So fast forward to where I am in terms of Kenilworth Union Church, NCC. I help out with the Sunday school. I still do stuff, as you guys have seen me in the confirmation class. That's sort of what I love to do. So in terms of where I was growing up, it's kind of where I'm still at as an adult. So, you guys are going to find things that you like to do now, and I hate to say it, 40 years down the road, you might still be doing it at your church. What brought me to NCC versus Kenilworth Union is sort of funny. At Kenilworth Union, I know they've changed now. We had to get dressed up every single Sunday. I am talking Mary Jeans and tights and dresses, and you had to be dressed up going to that church. I'm not a very fancy person. So when I moved to Northfield, my friend Wendy Sawtelle was like, oh, come to NCC. You can wear jeans. Her husband was like, you can basically wear slippers. They're like, you are going to be welcome.
Steve has worn slippers.
I think, yes. I was like, you're going to be welcome in anything you come in. They praised, my kids, I can't remember how old they were. Kindergarten and, actually, they were both maybe preschool. I don't even remember. But they're like, Rhonda's great. Dwayne's great. Just go and at least drop the kids off so you have a minute of peace or an hour of peace with Dwayne. That's sort of what brought me to here. I didn't shop around. I just kind of came hook, line, and sinker because I didn't have to get dressed up.
I have a funny story about Kenilworth Union.
Yeah.
Claire and I went church shopping at Kenilworth Union, and this is probably 12, 13 years ago.
Did you have to dress up?
I had khakis and a button-down shirt, and I was the only
Without
male
a coat.
without a coat.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt really, really out of place as
not dissing Kenilworth Union. I'm still actually technically a member of that church. I got married in that church. No, it's all great. But I didn't have to get dressed up. So that's sort of what brought me here. And now that I'm here, what my board that I'm on, so there's my story here, is I'm on the board of Christian education. Like several other moms of this group, there's probably 6 or 7 of us. Ruthie's mom's on it with me. Rhonda is our fearless leader, and Karma is on it. Those are some of the other moms around. So what do? We, like one of the big things we did was organize the lunch today. So we do fun things, is truly what I have to say. Like, it's sort of like we're creating parties along the way. We do, various lunches. We're in charge of the women's tea. I was lucky enough this past fall, I got to present the cute second graders with their Bibles on behalf of the Board of Christian Ed. Other thing, I had to write it down because we really do kind of help out wherever we can. Also, this time of year, if you guys look at your mail, or your parents look at your parents' mail, we put together like the advent calendar and ideas of kindness and gratitude ideas that you can do throughout the month of December, ideally every year. But those are some of the things. We help out. We helped when we had Messy Church. We were all here to support Rhonda on that Messy Church convention conference. This summer we were at the market, kind of trying to promote and celebrate, NCC, and we brought little projects, arts and crafts, toys that people could do and play there. So we're really trying to make it as fun as possible, including the education part of it. But Rhonda, have I forgotten anything? Wait, let me look at my list. Adult studies. We have to help to support like the bingo night, game night, some of those other things. Beth was on our committee up until then, and she sort of still spearheads some of that stuff, and so of course we're gonna help her out with whatever she needs help with.
And we also make a budget for.
Yes, and we do have a budget.
Education.
We have a big budget of like I think $800. Did we go up this year?
It might be a little more than that.
But we do discuss it. That is one of our little meetings. We meet on Zoom once a month, and it's been fun. It's my second year, I think, on it, and I'd do it again. Questions with any of that? Yeah, did I say the women's tea? Yeah. Yeah. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And my daughter obviously left because she was annoyed.
Well, wow.
Anything? We have discussed having a high schooler on our committee. And for those of you, I know Ruthie joined us once. That is another way, although this might be taking care of it. I was going to say, we were allowing...
So come and join so you can see what we do.
Yeah, a Zoom meeting and getting the credit that way. Ruthie got a credit that way. She joined in with us once. But that's it. Any other questions?
Questions for Kelly? So are you recommending we go to a dress code? Fancy clothes? Like tuxedos? Formal?
No. And I mean, in terms of where I've come to, because now my kids are older, well, actually, it's been really funny in terms of, and Rhonda could speak to it more, our, 10 years or so coming to the churches, the Sunday school programs have really changed in between the 9:30 and 10:30 services over this time. And I feel like at first we started coming to the 10:30 service because that was the bigger kids program. I am kind of excited that it's sort of, well, how would I say that? I have fallen in love with the 9:30 service here. I think the music's fantastic, so I love coming to the 9:30 service now, and I think I probably would have discovered it earlier if the main church service was at 10:30, but it's the best. It's the best. 10:30 is pretty good too, but I love the music at 9:30. You clap and you sing and you dance.
Well,
You've got
luckily,
Dwayne's
Kelly's
grandkids
really
running
going
around
on a dance
all
class.
over the place. But yeah,
Yes.
that's it.
Kelly, thank you.
There's
very
my
much.
church history.
Bill, Margaret, how are we doing outside in and
We
inside out?
got Tracy and Josh too, so.
Well, I know, I'm just going in my rows like a Lutheran. So,
Speaking of,
Thanks, everybody.
thank you, David.
Sneak out. Take care.
so I am Margaret Weber, and I joined this church when St. Peter, UCC down the road, merged.
I don't know if you want, can you explain that a little bit?
Oh,
Do you guys understand what Margaret's saying?
so let me give you the history, because actually this is really relevant. So I'm on the board as a moderator now, and the moderator track here is a 3-year commitment, and you start out as, and I have to use my cheat sheet because God bless him, Dwayne has coached me along all the way, but you start out as the assistant moderator, and then you're the moderator, and then you're the vice moderator. And all of us work together, and if one of us each council meeting works with Dwayne on the agenda for the council meeting and facilitating the council meeting. We support the different boards. There are different roles as the assistant moderator. You're a member of the all of them are members of the personnel committee. The assistant moderator also supports the stewardship committee, organizes the spring congregational meeting. As the moderator, you really run the meetings primarily, but like I say, you're backed up if you need somebody. And the vice moderator, who after you've been the moderator, then you're the vice moderator, then you're supposed to be the chair of the personnel committee and nominating
You know
committee.
what personnel is? So basically, Margaret is my boss and Ron is boss. You got it? You understand?
And generally, once you rotate off the moderators, you become a deacon, right?
That has been how it's worked and should still work.
The council is the governing body of the church who.
They're the governing body that envisions the total life and mission of the congregation. All the little parts, they're not little, but all the parts of the church, all of that, the council is represented by all these board members. We have 3 moderators who really direct the work of the congregation, and they may not always feel that way, but sometimes when something kind of big is going on, then you can feel the weight of that because there's a lot to do. So.
Yeah. And Dwayne, have you shared the council handbook?
No.
It
It is scintillating.
It is really, really a valuable way of understanding how your church operates. I mean, now I'm in business, right? So this is my kind of world. But you have an org chart. At the top of the org chart is Jesus Christ. I mean, that may sound like, well, of course, it's church. That's not how all churches feel. Okay? And then there's our congregation, and then there's the church council. At the end of the day, the UCC denomination is self-governed a lot more than lots of religions are. The Catholic Church, the head of the Catholic Church is the Pope, just under Jesus Christ, right? And I was raised Lutheran. Yeah, you can probably explain this a lot better. But I was raised Lutheran, and in the Lutheran Church there were rules that directed when this happened, then that had to happen. And I had a huge, when I was your age, like many of the people who sat up here, like you, I was in confirmation. I was raised in the church, baptized in the church. I went to Sunday school all my years. I went through confirmation. I taught Sunday school. And then we had a big decision over a retiring pastor and who would backfill. And I really opposed the decision that our church council made. And then I went off to college, and I really questioned whether there was a God. And my siblings didn't have this, well, maybe my brother did. My other sisters, their faith never was shaken. I went through a number of years where I wasn't sure there was a God. And then I had a baby. and you should. I mean, I really believe that holding a newborn is the closest you will ever see to perfection and the closest you will ever be to God. And instantly, I knew there was a God. And I still had not great feelings about the Lutheran Church. But by then, my husband and I had been together forever, and we went to his parents' church every Christmas and Easter and whatnot, whenever we were back here visiting. And so when we had children, I decided, well, and even when I didn't have faith, I knew I would raise my children in a church because I do believe it's really, really valuable. As you heard, lots of us have friends from when we grew up in the church. We felt safe and secure in the church. We felt something more important than lots of our conversations in other parts of our world. But when it came time to choose a church, he was raised UCC. And so to me, I aligned with how the UCC worked. And so when we moved to Northbrook, I pulled out the phone book in those days and found the closest UCC church. I went there one time, met Mitzi Smith as the greeter that day. And because of the falling out I had with my Lutheran church, I swore I would never join a church again based on the pastor. I had to be able to feel the connection with the congregation that would withstand any change in pastors. And I will say, ever since, I have felt like our congregation is my church family. And being on the council, I can tell you this council is a lot different because, to your point, Dwayne, when I was down the street, our congregation got smaller and smaller, and we could not afford our bills. We could not afford, with our income, to pay all of the property bills, the building bills, the staff bills. And sort of like with lots of marriages, when you have to face really tough decisions, it sometimes puts a really serious strain on your family. And I was on council through that. It was nothing like being on council here, where it's really a wonderful experience to be, just very, very aligned at trying to move the church forward. When a church is going through serious financial challenges, people want to solve that problem differently. And there were people who had been part of that church for generations who did not want to sell the property, who did not want to merge with another church, who only wanted to merge with another church if the other church would come there. There were all different ideas of what we could do to sell part of the property and put a building there or cell tower or whatever. And over the course of those tough decisions, we lost a ton of our members. And it was very, very sad. I'm really grateful that I've kept in touch with a number of them. I have like a ladies get together once or twice a year around Christmas, and some of our friends from the previous church come and join us, and it's lovely because they really are part of my church, my extended church family. But when we had those falling out, those kinds of tough decisions, a lot of people did leave. And so that's the reality of church life sometimes, is that there are sometimes these really hard challenges you face that you have to work through. And some people won't stick it out together. And I get it. And I'm glad that in spite of that, we can still be friends at the end of the day. Sort of like your family. Sometimes we don't agree on politics, or we don't agree with how we take care of how we raise our kids, and but if you're lucky enough to be in a family where you still consider yourselves brothers and sisters or cousins first, you're pretty lucky. So,
Thank you, Margaret.
sure.
So, Margaret said she's one of our 3 moderators. She explained our organizational structure. And the challenge, I mean, I think she just gave us a wonderful sort of story about the challenges that we face in congregational life. And that's just life, right? So, but if you have good people who are really trying to be at their best, then we come, I mean, the part that Margaret, I think just maybe you just know that we know this is eventually our congregation, St. Peter congregation and Northwood Community Church came together and merged, and it's been a beautiful fit, right?
For those of us who stuck it out.
St. Peter had to give up their property, which is very hard to do, but we had one period of time on the council where all of our moderators were all from St. Peter originally.
Oh, wow.
Did you know that?
I did not.
Yeah. So it's been a very nice fit and very natural fit after a very difficult time.
Sally?
Yeah.
So like, oh, wait, can I speak?
Yeah.
Yes.
Who's
So
speaking?
what?
What are you doing back there? How long are you going to eat? Get over here in the chair.
My question was, you said you had a lot of like, you didn't really stick for some parts of your life with the faith.
Right.
Why did you decide to stay Christian instead of going to like other religions or quitting entirely, besides just saying that?
Well, I did quit entirely for a number of years. And my husband is an agnostic at best. My husband he goes to church when I ask him to or when his mother asks him to. And I have to sit between him and my children or they will be total cut-ups when I do take them all to church. No, that's a great question. And frankly, when I was in college, I almost I planned to take a class on world religions to make a logical choice. And I planned to study world religions after college to make a more conscious choice. And in the end, I ran out of time in my curriculum and after. But I chose, and underneath it all, I believe there are so many different ways to God. I don't think there's one right religion. I don't think there's that only through religion do you know God. And I sort of have to believe this in my heart because my husband's an agnostic. But I remember riding with one of my drivers for a while when I used to travel every week for work, was a devout Muslim. And it was a beautiful way of seeing it. He said, well, just because I'm a Muslim and you're a Christian doesn't mean we don't worship the same God. We understand him differently, or we use different words or different passages, which I thought was such a beautiful view. And I think that's the view I have. I chose to raise my child Christian in the United States because it is the most common religion in the United States. And so it seemed like an easier foundation, a more universal foundation for them living here. If I had raised my children elsewhere, maybe I would have chosen another.
I mean, like, in my opinion, it shouldn't matter how easy it is to raise your kid a certain religion. Or like, if I'm still Christian, even though it's an easy religion to be in the United States of America, even if I moved to maybe one of the countries in the Middle East where it's harder to be Christian or Jew, I would still stick with my religion because, like, I feel like it transcends all other values that you have. Because, like, one of the important things for me is, like, But like, I feel like there's a lot of grounds for Christianity, so you should learn how to defend your religion. And then you learn more about God, you learn more about your religion in general, and you stick with it more and you know that it's the right one. Sure, there's other religions out there, maybe there's a tiny bit of truth to them, but I feel like the reason we're all here in church today is because Christianity is the right one. If it wasn't, then there would be, especially with my family, like, we're very religious, but we're open-minded. We'll go to other churches, like church shopping, and we've done in the past. Not because we don't like this church, just because we want to see other experiences in our life. And, like, because of that, we're open-minded seeing other religions. We know Christianity is the right one. You guys do as well. Maybe there's a little truth in other religions, but there's a reason you pick this one. It's because God is telling you to pick this one. And yeah, I mean,
Well, I applaud you for the strength of your convictions. You and I see this very, very differently. And that's why I'm at UCC. Because I can say that openly and still feel welcome here. I can tell you that I totally disagree with a lot of that, but I respect your conviction.
I respect you.
So,
Good stuff, you guys. Thank you.
yeah.
There you go.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you, Margaret. Any questions for Margaret? Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Margaret. Bill? For Mr. McKinley?
Hi there. So I have to sit down because otherwise I'm not in the frame.
Believe it or not, you're okay either way.
Come over here.
No, I wasn't trying to be mean.
Yeah, you were.
You look more relaxed.
Yeah, okay. So, hi, I'm Bill McKinley.
Tough room.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I wasn't.
Always when Dwayne's here, it's a tough room, right? So, I'm the chair of the mission board, and so I'm here to tell you about the mission board. And I'm glad to see that Kelly had notes because nobody else did. I need those because I have to. My brain doesn't work spontaneously. So I have a question starting out. Does everybody know what tithing is? Does anybody know what tithing is?
All right, Bill, preach it.
Okay. Tithing is when you give, it's like a formula for how much you're going to give of your income. So it's, and they call it tithing because the root is like Greek and works with the number of 10. So it's like 10% of your income then goes to charity. And I'm not here to encourage you to do that specifically, but that's what the church adopted as its principle of giving. So when your family gives money to the church gives 10% of that to the community, to the denomination, United Church of Christ. Actually 40% of that 10% goes to the denomination. It pays for ministers to be educated. It pays for just the organization of the church and the people that kind of keep us all, make the decisions about what the faith tradition stands for, how they deal with new things that come up in politics and society, etc. Then the 60% is allocated to local charities that deal with the poor, with the disadvantaged, with the homeless, and that's what the board does, is it figures out who gets what, researches what charities are out there and available, and makes the allocation. And matter of fact, just last Thursday, that's what we did. We made our final decisions on where the money was going to go, and that's published in the annual report. So if you want to see where the church is giving money to, you can look that up.
So let's say somebody has an abscess tooth, and they're poor, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not easy to get dental care if you don't have dental insurance or finances, right? Am I right or wrong? say, this is killing me, I need help, and there's this dental clinic going on that some guy puts on with a bunch of dentists, like, who does that kind of stuff? Anybody you know?
It's not ringing a bell for Dwayne's team went up for me. So I've got actually, the way that I got involved with it, he's referring to a dental clinic that goes out and gives away free dental care.
How many of those are you doing?
Well, actually, right now it's kind of an issue for me because we're trying to set them up, and the people I'm working with, everybody takes vacations at different times, and it's getting really tough to come up with a date that everybody can make. So I've got the charities identified. We've got most of our funding, but just getting a date where we can have a clinic is really getting tough. So the way I got involved with that was I answered the phone because Dwayne called.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, and Dwayne
Big
said,
mistake.
I got a call from an organization that wants to, George Warga, that wants to stage a dental clinic at the church, and it will provide free dental care to people that can't afford care and need it. And he said, what do you think? And I said, wow, it sounds amazing. How much would it cost us? And he said, nothing. They just want to use our facility and do that. Heck yes. So let's do it. So
And then I went on a mission trip.
Huh?
And then I went on the youth mission trip and left you all by yourself doing this.
Well, you came back just in time. You looked great when you got here, too.
I hope so.
Yeah. So I wound up with the responsibility of going to get the patients because there aren't a lot of people in the immediate vicinity here that need dental care but can't afford it. So I wound up with busing people in, and the logistics of all of that were kind of making me crazy. And the guy that ran the organization, they were out of North Carolina, by the way, and they drove up with a big 25-foot truck with all of the equipment in it. And he came up to me towards the end of the clinic and said, you know, it'd be a lot easier if you had the clinic where the patients were rather than having it here and bringing them all over here. It's like, yeah, that does make a lot of sense. So the next year we did it. I found another location for us, and then I was able to work with them for year over year. And my daughter started working with me, and it just turned out to be a great experience for both of us.
You ever added up how much free dental care you provided?
I know we broke 100,000 before the pandemic.
You mean $1 million? I think it was $1 million.
Oh, it was $1 million. Yeah. That's right. That's that extra zero. Yeah. We broke $1 million before the pandemic, and then when the pandemic hit, it shut us down, and we had to just wait. And last January, I think it was, we started revving back up, and we did 3 clinics this past year, and then we're going to try to do 6 next year, assuming I can find a date that we can have people show up. So in addition to the 10%, you heard all the conversation about St. Peter. When they sold that property, they wound up with a lot of money from the property, and the congregation decided how they were going to manage that money that came from that sale, and they put it into a big investment fund, and then the plan was to spend it down over as long as it took. And then when they merged with our church here, the deal was the mission board will distribute those funds, $80,000 a year, and so that's an additional responsibility that the board picked up. Very similar to what we were doing before with the 10%, but we added more people because there was more money, went out and researched more agencies, etc. And it's extremely rewarding work. be able to do that. And let's see.
Anybody walking the crop hunger walk this year? Yeah?
There we go.
Ruthie, I see Ruthie. Anybody else? And how much did you raise for hunger walk?
That was 30,000 here.
Right.
This church came up with 30,000. So when you think about the size of our church, the budget's somewhere in the neighborhood of 600,000, I think.
Could be right. Margaret? Josh?
475.
Oh, okay.
That's the 470. That's the total budget?
I think that's the full revenue.
That's the pledges and loose offerings budget, because I get 10% of that.
Remember how Margaret said that sometimes people disagree?
Somewhere.
Yeah.
But look how simple
It's,
this
you know,
is.
$500,000 is not a bad bogey to use for
Okay.
the total budget.
Well, the budget's a little bit larger just because there's rental income and there's property stuff that isn't included. But so the pledges is, well, that's actually an anachronism at this point. Church uses another term for that. What is it now?
Essence of giving.
There we go.
Because pledging, the word pledges become a legal challenge because, yeah.
Yeah. So when your family gives money, they say, they're asked to tell the church ahead of time how much they're going to give, and then the Board of Trustees and Josh and Steve Ash that runs the church puts together the budget, and then 10% of that budget then comes to the mission board, and we allocate that through the year. And we don't, the money doesn't leave the church until the end of the year because everybody needs to be able to put in what they said they were going to contribute, and otherwise we wind up short. The crop walk is the next part of it that I was going to talk about, just that because most of our efforts for the mission board are all local. We like the Chicago metro area, and it's not exclusive because we have Carrie Gilbert is a member of the church, and she is co-operator of a thing called Empowerment, and that's over in Africa. So it's Tanzania, and it's right next to Kenya if you're familiar with African geography. And there's another international one that has escaped me right now. Can't remember that. But most of it's spent around the Chicago metro area. Church World Service, on the other hand, as you can tell from the name, is international. And so the money that the church gives to Church World Service, 75% of that gets spent internationally, 25% of it gets spent here in the Chicago metro area. And that goes mostly to feeding operations, Hunger Resources, Just Harvest, and the Northfield Food Pantry. So the mission board's activities then are local and international, and to put all this another way, and I'll have to read this because I'll get it wrong otherwise. To put it another way, the mission board of your church helps you bring needed respiratory care to kids struggling to breathe in families that can't afford their asthma care. We help you bring dental care to the homeless and others that have no other way to escape the daily pain of their infections. We help you pay for counseling, psychology services, and suicide prevention care for the youth in your grade school and your high school. We help you support education and safe after-school and preschool programs in the violence-stricken West Austin and Garfield Park area of Chicago. And just a couple of weeks ago, we helped you put a pair of winter boots on an Afghani refugee doing his best to provide for his family in Skokie. So that's what we do.
We're getting close to the end, which I'm sorry to say, because we want to hear from Josh and Tracy. Any questions for Bill? Because you can always talk to Bill about, he's around, and if they do a lot of great stuff, and so do you. You guys participate in this in a lot of ways. Anybody been up to Feed My Starving Children? Part of the mission of the church,
There we go.
right? Crop Hunger Walk, lot of stuff, canned goods,
The church world service buckets.
the buckets and the hygiene
Oh,
kits,
part of church world
ministries
service.
under the Christmas tree.
The breaks, yeah.
You guys are all on the mission board by extension, right?
Absolutely.
And the biggest thing that we've pulled from this is that NCC, the importance of that NCC thinks it's a very mission-minded church.
It's at the center of our identity,
Yes.
our
Well,
care and outreach to others.
and
Part of
it-
that is the obvious reason, because we live in a place where we have many blessings. We have plenty. Most all of our families have plenty, and then some. And that's part of it. But it's also all the way back to talking about the deacons and what we are sharing with the widows and orphans, which becomes a metaphor for our care for the poor. It's at the heart, at the very beginning. The church has always understood itself as an outward reaching. Otherwise, we don't. Whatever your theology is, Tyler, whatever you think the truth of Christ is, and I do too, that truth of Christ is extended arms, always. It's not enough for it to be a philosophy or right ideas. Those are great. I'm in favor. But it also has to do with outreach. Okay, thank you, sermon. Josh and Tracy coming together. You have a full 5 minutes.
Yeah, we can do it.
I know Josh can.
Yeah, you're worried about me.
Yeah.
I'm Tracy Bookman. It's my husband, Josh Bookman. And Jeff Jordan beats me because I was not baptized in this church.
What?
But I did grow up in this church, got confirmed in this church, got married in this church, brought my children up in this church, and my kids have been confirmed in this church. So
She's been here forever.
we've been here for a long time.
Yeah.
We came because my grandmother told my mom, you need to go to church where your kids have friends.
Yeah.
And I did have a lot of friends here. In my confirmation class, there were 27 kids. So it was a different time when there were a lot of families in the church. And we had a lot of fun, Jeff.
Mhm.
We had a youth group, same like David.
Were you
He's younger.
close?
Her brother.
Yeah.
Berkey.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
a lot younger. Anyway, so I have grown up loving this church. And when Josh and I met, UCC, is United Church of Christ, is a congregational church. And it was unusual for me to meet someone who is also a Congregationalist. So when
It's
we were
even more
getting
unusual,
married,
doesn't it?
when we were getting married, we had to come talk to the minister at that time about getting married.
This is before Dwayne.
Before Dwayne was here.
His name was
Hard to
Don.
believe.
Don Minnick.
And can we tell this story?
Yeah, I'll tell it.
You tell it.
So we're sitting down, and Don has not met me before. He just knows my name is Josh, and back then I had very dark, curly hair before it all turned gray.
Last name Bookman.
And my last name was Bookman. And Don talks to us. I
And
can
he's a
tell he's a
lawyer.
little bit uncomfortable, and I'm a lawyer. He knows I'm a lawyer. And he goes, have you two, now that you've decided to get married, have you thought about how you're going to resolve your religious differences? And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then I thought, my father, I'm a preacher's kid. My father was a congregational minister, but not in the UCC, but in the National Association of Congregational Churches. Different sect of congregational churches, but very similar.
Same roots all the way to 1957.
Yeah. So I'm thinking he knows the difference between the NACC and the UCC, and he's asking me if that's going to be an issue for our marriage. And until I realized he thought I was a Jew. And then I said, well, I grew up in the church, and he looked shocked, and I had to explain it to him. But that was our introduction to the church.
Bookman's
His,
lawyer.
Yeah.
his introduction to the church.
My introduction to the church.
Don
Tracy
said,
was,
next question.
yeah, Don, so let's move on.
Move on.
So we got married in this church 37 years ago, and have been coming ever since. We lived for the first 3 years of our marriage in Boston, so we weren't here, but then we moved back into the area in 1989?
87. Or 89.
89,
Yeah.
and have been here ever since.
Yeah.
My job, we have to make this fast, my job is I've been on the board of trustees for many years, and I was on the stewardship committee for a number of years, and for the past 6, 8, 10 years, I've lost count, I've been the treasurer of the church. And that treasurer job is a financial job having to do with the finances of the church, but it's not a hands-on management of the finances. I don't enter the numbers in the books. We have someone who does that, someone who's really good at it. His name is Steve Ash. He works in that little office next to Dwayne's office. He writes the checks, and he looks at the bank statements, and he does all the detailed work of the finances of the church, and he's really good at it. My job is more overseeing the financial picture of the church. I have to think about the budget. Every year I work on the budget with Dwayne and Steve, and I present the budget to the congregation every December. I have to think about whether or not we have enough money to survive for the next several years in terms of do we have enough income from pledges and other sources compared to what our expenses are. I have to think about how much the building and grounds are costing us. We did the solar thing this year. You guys probably noticed we have solar panels up now in the church. Think about whether or not we can afford that. And the other big aspect of being treasurer is the church is lucky enough to have a fairly large endowment. You guys ever heard that word? An endowment is something that organizations like churches and universities have, which is money that has been donated over the years, which is kept in a single pot somewhere. And it's usually a lot of money. Ours is in excess of $3 million. It's a lot of money. Especially since I looked it up on my phone, our budget is approximately $650,000 a year. So the endowment is 5 times what our annual budget is. And one of the things I have to do as treasurer is advise the council and the other leaders of the church as to how I think that money can be, should be, and shouldn't be used to finance the day-to-day operation of the church. And that's a struggle, and that's something we're going to be dealing with for years to come, is how do we have this big pot of money, but we have a church that doesn't generate enough income to pay our expenses every year. So how do we bridge that gap? And one of the ways we're doing that is by accessing a portion of the endowment. Now, the goal is not to access the principal of the endowment. I know I'm starting to talk like a banker now, but the endowment makes money every year. Interest, dividends on the stocks that are in it, things like that. So we're trying to limit ourselves to what the income of the endowment is every year, so that the amount, that $3 million figure that I gave you, never goes down. Okay, and the other big thing the church has is this huge property in a very expensive part of the North Shore of Chicago. So we have several $1 million in property. Now, we can't access that because we can't sell the property to anybody. We can't get the money from that, but that's a big asset that the church has. All right, so those are the kinds of things I think about. I go to all the trustees meetings and I go to all the council meetings, so I'm on a lot of meetings. But my main goal there is just to let everybody know what the financial condition of the church is and whether or not there's anything immediate that we have to deal with or talk about.
Any questions for Josh?
Any questions about being the treasurer? It's not that hard, believe me.
It is. It's just you're a very incisive person. You do it very well. It is a hard job, especially if money is not your main thing.
So. It's not. I was a lawyer, not a money guy.
Yeah, but there's a lot of detail.
Right. Okay.
You want to give it to us in 72 seconds?
I can do it. I'm
got a
going to
minute
do
and a
it.
half.
So I've been on several boards here. I've been on the board of Christian Ed, which you've heard Kelly talk about, which I loved. I also used to, when I was in grade school or high school, I was in charge of the nursery and would take care of the kids in the nursery. But right now my job is the memorials chairman. And memorials committee is a committee that takes care of when someone passes away, they'll make a donation to the church in honor of that person. So there's money that's set aside, and the memorials committee helps decide where that money should go. Sometimes the family wants it to go towards something in particular, and sometimes they want ideas from us. So that's one thing we do, is we decide on that. We also help families who have lost a loved one and are having service here, and afterwards they'll have a reception. So we can help. Sometimes we help make food, but we also help serve and clean up. And that's probably one of my favorite parts of the job. It is a great service to the family who is having a difficult time. And it is my way of showing family as church. My grandmother always said, you have lots of friends, and there's something really special about church friends, and I feel strongly about that. And there happen to be women on our committee. We would take men also, but just happens to be women. We would take men. Any men welcome. Dwayne always helps out. He's always, yeah, that's right, he is on the emails. And, but church friends are very special. And it's a whole different age groups on this committee, so that's been lovely to get to know them. We also take care of, you've probably seen the memorial garden outside, where a lot of our past saints, loved ones are resting. And so we help.
Where her parents are going to go someday.
And Tyler's grandmother is there.
Yeah, who I adored.
Right, she was our next door neighbor for many years.
We loved her. So we help take care of that garden, and I just happen to take care of the flower pots. That's an extension of the memorial garden, and that's pretty much it for the Memorials Committee, what we do. We'll host receptions like All Saints Day and Easter Sunday, and we help decorate the church for Christmas. So, and we will be taking down the Christmas tree decorations after Christmas. So those are kind of our go-to jobs. So it's a fun job. It's where I think it's good when you think about your talents that you have, that you've been given, and you decide to funnel them where, for me, the garden, the being a reception host and making people feel comfortable plays to my strengths. So I think it's good when you want to help the church that you play to your strengths.
Any questions before we call it a night? Thank you, guys, very much. What a perfect way to close, to think about what your gifts, abilities, talents, passions are, right? Kelly told us that she's kind of always been in this, and Jeff's been here, and people with organizational skills, and Tracy talking about caring for the garden, which is a legacy that's very important to make sure that we honor the memory of the people who we love and who are part of that. And it's a big deal. So, and there's a place for your gifts, right? I mean, Margaret's an engineer, and she's talking about using her organizational gifts, and then all of you all have gifts, and that's part of what confirmation is supposed to be, for you to discern, discover what those gifts are, and explore what they are, right? And then over the course of a lifetime, that's the cool thing. Over the course of a lifetime, you get to try some stuff. I don't think that Bill ever decided that he didn't want to be a dentist, and now look at you. You're doing dental access day and working, all kinds of ways to use your gifts and abilities. Thank you to all of those, all of our board and committee members who are here. Thank you guys for coming. Anything you want to close with, Rhonda? Confirmation Sunday night, right? Next Sunday night?